Hey everyone, welcome to the part 4 and last part of Student and Emerging Professionals Week. We are so excited throughout the week to see all the beautiful programs come together and to see all the success that has been happening. Uh, but we're saving the best for the last. And today is a wonderful panel that is going to discuss the topic of the untold truths of the industry. So I'm Miriam Abdul Hamid, the chair of the Student and Emerging Professionals Committee. I would like to thank everyone who took the time on a Saturday morning to join us. Let me introduce you to our ASID New Jersey board. We have a couple people here. Jeffrey McCullough, Professional Development Director of ASID New Jersey. Suha Jawad, Student Rep to the board. We have also Susan Farsi, Director at Large, and also Bo Sturubu, Membership Director. And we also have our President, Marilyn LeBorn. So for today's, we're gonna have the chat box monitor, Dimiana. So please, if you have any questions coming on, put it in the chat. She's gonna monitor that. Marilyn, I would like to turn it to you for a opening words for today.
Thank you so much, Miriam, and good morning to everyone that has joined us this morning live, and also good morning to you all that may be seeing this later on today. This has been kind of the resounding end to what has been a remarkable week, celebrating and enriching our students and emerging professionals. If you've missed any of the sessions this week, I believe that all of them are online on our YouTube channel. Is that correct, Jeffrey? All of them are online on our YouTube channel. Certainly take a look at the ASID website for future events. For today, though, I'm glad to see so many students here. Tell your classmates they've really missed something good if they're not here today, but to definitely check in on our YouTube channel. Again, welcome.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. And we also have a very special announcement that has been announced throughout the week. And that Suha Jawed, our student rep to the board, is gonna tell you all about it. Suha, take it on.
So hi, good morning, everyone. I'm the student rep. So we had a competition for the merch. It was a student merch competition. Let me just share my screen. Tell me if you can see my screen.
It's loading. Here you go. Yep.
Okay. So we had a student competition. We asked student designers to design a logo for that would go on the merch for ASID New Jersey. And we have it was challenging for the board to pick only one designer, or one winner. So we have three winners, first, second, and third place. So our first winner is Jana Motley, and she will be getting, she's a Kane student. She's a sophomore at Kane, and she will be getting three free merch items with her logo on it. And then also, if anyone was at the Friday event, you saw her logo on the tables where you saw the name tags for everyone. And then our second winner is Gianna LaRussa. So she is also a Kane student. She's a junior. She would be getting two free merch items with her logo on it. And then our third winner is Zara Ahmed. So she's also a Kane student. She's a sophomore and a CCM transfer, and she will be getting one free merch item. So I can stop. So thank you and congratulations to all the winners, and thank you for submitting your designs.
Yes,
And
how exciting.
now we will be going into production mode and actually making the merch. So follow us on ASID Instagram, ASID New Jersey Instagram page to be updated on the latest whenever we're gonna launch the merch.
So excited. Thank you so much. And congratulations to all our students who submitted and to these who won. Before I move forward to our panels, I would also want to thank our sponsors. Without them, we would never have this week running. So these are chapter sponsors: Benjamin Moore, Roman Board, Country Casualties, and also not to forget our event sponsors, Metropolitan Window Fashion. Really huge thank you to all of them. And I would like to share one sponsor video from Metropolitan Window Fashion with all of you.
We don't hear him, Miriam.
Oops, I appreciate you telling me that, Jeffrey. All right, second time. Yeah.
Hi, this is Bruce Hyman of Metropolitan Window Fashions. Give us a call to find out about our designer referral program and how we can help you with your custom window fashions. We work with all levels of designers and all types of customers. We're here for you. Thank you. Hi.
And thank you so much, Bruce from Metropolitan Window Fashion. Without further ado, I'm gonna pass it to Dimiana, who's gonna tell us about our panelists today. Dimiana, please tell us.
Hi, everyone. So today I would like to introduce you our three amazing panelists. We first have Marilyn Laverne. She's the principal and creative director of Marilyn Laverne Interiors. She's an interior designer, is known for applying fine arts sustainabilities to livable spaces for both residential and commercial clients. Starting every project from scratch, she designs spaces that deeply reflect her clients' highest aspirations. Currently, she is designing projects in North End, New Jersey, New York City, Washington, D.C., and Miami. She earned the certificate in interior design from Parsons Schools of Design in New York and holds a BA in mass media arts and journalism from Hamilton University in Virginia. Her passion for sharing insights on the latest design trends has earned her placement in Forbes Design NJ, Better Homes and Garden, and more. She is currently president of New Jersey chapter of American Society of Interior Designers. Marilyn now resides in Montclair, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Our second panelist is Tammy Bolden. She's an allied ASID, AKBD, and principal designer and owner of Bold Interior Designs LLC. Tammy is an award-winning kitchen and bath designer who graduated from Kean University with a BFA in interior design with cum laude honors, and she also holds a BS in marketing from Kean University. A native of Newark, New Jersey, Tammy launched Bold Interiors Designs in 2011 after working for two NYC area designers with affluent clientele. Tammy has served on the board of ASID New Jersey as the professional development director and currently serving as the chair of the DEI committee for the ASID NY chapter. She is a member of the National Kitchen and Bath Associations. She volunteered with court-appointed special advocates of the Essex County for several years. She is a charter member of the Essex Hudson chapter of Jack and Jill of America and a chapter member of Ford's Associate Chapter. Tammy and her husband Todd have 3 adult children and recently relocated to Norwalk, Connecticut after living in Montclair, New Jersey for 30 plus years. And our last panelist is Denise Poe. She's an allied ASID member, founder and principal designer of AJ Interiors by D, and a New Jersey-based interior design business. She's a wife and a mother of 2 adult children, lives in Paramus, New Jersey since 2003. Denise has a BBA from Peace University in business and an MBA from NYIT in marketing. After college, she earned her business and hospitality experience working in NYC companies like the Sky Club and the Waldorf Astoria. Moving to New Jersey with her family, she built a real estate management business with her husband while earning her interior design certificate from Bergen County College and New York Institute of Art and Design, then passed the residential interior design qualification certification and launched her business in 2019. Denise is an allied member of ASID and a member of NKBA. Denise focuses on creating interior spaces that reflect the homeowner's lifestyle through comfortable luxury modern design and specializes in kitchen and bath. She enjoys collaborating with all trades in remodeling and renovations for her client. Aside from design, she has a love of travel, great food, and spending time with family and friends, all of where she gets her inspiration from. And now we pass it to Marilyn Laverne.
Back to moi. Um, well, again, welcome everyone. So today we're going to have a formal yet rather informal conversation about what you all may not be getting in school as students. All three of us have worked in interior design for, would I say an average of 20 plus years, you all?
Or more.
Or more, or more. And so we've seen and experienced some things, and I think all of us have formed um, opinions and strategies for how to succeed beyond what you've learned in school. So I don't know if there's a moderator who's going to ask us questions,
So
but if there
what I'm
isn't,
going to do is have each of you, if you would each do your sort of 15 to 20-minute talk,
sure.
I'm going to be taking notes
Okay.
and sort of go into Q&A amongst just me with each of you, and then
Okay.
put it up to the students for Q&A after each one of you as well.
All right, so I'm all ready. So let me start off by saying this. One of the first things that you don't learn in design school is that interior design is a business. And in fact, there aren't any design schools that really focus or emphasize on that. But to kind of bring some clarity to that part of the conversation, globally, the interior design industry generated $134.2 billion last year. That's globally. Of that amount, 34.8%, $34.8 billion was earned here in the United States. So this is it's a serious business. It's an important business. It's viable in every one of the lower 48 states, our territories, and beyond. So there is work out there for us to do, and I want you to focus on the fact that this is a business. When you're a student, what you're focused on is the fact that this is creative work, and so as a creative person, it makes sense, excuse me, to focus on just the creative elements of the work. The lifeblood, however, of any business is sales. And this is one of the things that we have to really be serious about learning how to sell. And this is another thing that you're not going to learn in school. There's no such thing as getting a degree in selling or sales, right? Even at the most strident business schools, they don't teach selling or sales. They teach marketing. They teach accounting, they teach trading, but they do not teach selling. Selling is a skill that you have to learn separate from school. And it's something that I think you do yourself a favor to either read some books or take some sales training. So in terms of, and not to give you all more homework to do, but one of the first books that every person who's in selling reads is How to Win Friends and Influence People. You guys, that book has been around for decades.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to read it, listen to it, on an ebook. What I think has been so great about that, and I go back to it and reference it frequently. Selling is about building relationships, and I've met a I've met dozens of designers who haven't been able to be successful, not because they weren't creative or because their work wasn't innovative. It was really because they really didn't understand how to build relationships. And to that end, another piece of advice that I would share is consider taking a job in a showroom where selling is going on. This gives you an opportunity to be front facing in front of clients, customers. Now, I have worked at the D&D building in showrooms where my customers or clients were interior designers, architects, um, specifiers for builders. I have also worked for extensively at Cabinets to Go. Cabinets to Go is a national kitchen cabinetry retailer. They're huge on HGTV and DIY network. So I'm working with people at the opposite end of the consumer spectrum, let's say that. In both positions, I had a chance to understand the the importance of sales. As I said a moment ago, sales is the lifeblood of any business. And so you have to learn some of the basics of how to pre-qualify people. I think when we were at Metropolitan Window Fashions, Bruce had mentioned that, and the average cost of a window treatment there, I think it starts at, did he say $200, I believe? And, he mentioned it. He said, so if you're in front of somebody who says, boy, that's too expensive for me, that's not your client. And it's not that you're failing at the work when that happens. It's that you needed to pre-qualify that person. There are techniques and ways to do that. We don't have enough time today for us to go through a full sales training, but that is part of selling. Also, being able to understand how to present your features and benefits. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about how to present yourself in a job interview. You are the product. As a creative person, design, I want to emphasize, is about the future. So when you're in front of a client, at every turn, you're talking about something that's going to happen or be purchased for the future. You have to be able to help people to believe in what you're saying. Yesterday, I did talk about the fact that people don't buy what we do. Everybody on this call is an interior designer. People buy what we believe, and what we believe is what distinguishes us from each other. Um, Tammy Bolden is a good friend of mine. She was a guest on my podcast that I had a couple of years ago. I understood about Tammy Bolden that she believes in wallpaper. She believes in it. I frankly do not believe in wallpaper, but I wanted to do a show about wallpaper, and her belief about it was so compelling and so I'm going to say inspiring that I have kind of come over a little bit on the wallpaper side. That's because she was very effective at selling what she believed in. Um, I am a designer who believes in fine art. And so my clients that work with me are attracted to what I do because of my belief in fine art, right? I'm nearly evangelical about how important fine art is to the power that it provides in interior design. So as a designer, clearly everybody who's on this call, you all already believe in yourselves as interior designers. Start to build and develop what you believe about design and what you want to bring to it. As a salesperson, it'll be very easy for you to be able to articulate that. One story I want to share with you is that I probably, like all of you, you hear the word sales or salesperson, it feels icky. It kind of it conjures up the vision of like a used car salesperson. It's because you feel manipulated by somebody selling you something that you're not really sure is valuable at the level that you need it to be. And when you're a designer, however, when you believe in a thing, you can sell a thing that you believe in. And I came to Cabinets to Go believing that kitchen design was really important, believing that my ability to articulate how important it is to have a well-planned kitchen, um, that would come through in what I was talking about. So my very quick story is that I came to Cabinets to Go at a time when I was closing my interior design showroom. This was during the time when some of you all are probably too young to remember this. Banks were too big to fail, and so um, they business was really, really tough for us in interior design. So I knew though that people were they still had value. I believed that there was value in kitchen and bathroom design. And so I went to every showroom that I had ever worked with and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. And the first ones that called me back was Cabinets to Go. And so he says, yeah, we really need somebody. We need somebody with your kind of enthusiasm. Why don't you come back tomorrow? And I said, great, I'll be back tomorrow. And he said, you don't even know what the job pays. And I go, I really don't care what it pays. I want to learn more about kitchen design, and I believe in this. By the way, the job at that time, it only paid $10 an hour, which is crazy. But I'm going to get to the point. It essentially, in a showroom like that, it's a sales job. So it's $10 an hour plus commission. When I came in there, I was really serious about learning about kitchen design. And the more I learned, the better I got at it. And that first month, I think I made like $1,200. And the next month, I made more and more. And by the end of that year, the end of my first year, I made $119,000. And I'm saying all that to say that I could have turned my back on a $10 an hour job, but I believed in what I was selling and presenting to customers to the extent that I earned a six-figure salary. And it continued on that way. I stayed with them for 7.5 years. So I don't want you guys to overlook the power of being good at sales and understanding that design is what your pathway is in that way. Moving on from sales, like I've talked about, you got to believe in what you're doing. I want you all to take very seriously the importance of protecting your confidence. Your confidence it's a commodity that you cannot allow an employer or a client to abuse. This is a creative profession that we're in, and creative work is subjective work. Um, like I said, I'm a big proponent of fine art. I run into people who go, I don't believe in that. And it'd be very easy to criticize or critique my love of it. That's not my client or my customer. You all will have things that you really believe in, that you have faith in, things that you want to bring into your voice as a designer. Don't be afraid to do that. Protect that for yourself and within yourself. I'm saying this part and I'm emphasizing this because I've talked to so many people who have been in jobs at firms where they were criticized, critiqued, some even humiliated. I've talked to people who have come to me and said, I was working for this firm and I was really excited, and then the person just ghosted me or they embarrassed me in front of clients. Um, there's some humility to this work, but there's some boundaries that you need to establish for yourself to protect your self-confidence and your courage. Build up in yourself, who you are and what you intend to bring to this work. I have a good friend in Miami, and she always says, when I walk into a meeting, I walk in there like God sent me. And that's the extent to which you really have to have confidence in yourself and in the work that you do. Um, this friend of mine in Miami, her name is Kimberly. Kimberly was an intern with me on a show house project several years ago. Um, and even the group of designers that I was working with, they would sort of like abuse the work that she was doing, right? She knew how to draw and draft, and she was really good at interior space planning. She was the only person on the whole team that knew how to do AutoCAD. And they would sort of like ask and re-ask her can we see it this way? Can we see it that way? You guys, that's a common thing that people do. You got to be firm about, look, this is what I'm presenting you is the best of what we're doing. Kimberly was like, hey, I'm here for the experience of it. And she moved on after that project. And then she worked for Jackie Greenberg, who was working on some celebrity projects out in the Hamptons. And that went really, really well. Although Jackie was very critical of everything she did, including even like, her her outfits, which by the way, Kimberly's a very stylish person, but I think she was probably jealous of how she looked. I'll just say that. Eventually, she worked for Sheila Bridges. You guys, this is all over a very short period of time. We're talking about between 2 and 3 years after finishing school at Parsons. And in working with Sheila Bridges, I think the biggest project that she worked on was the Vice President's residence in Washington, D.C. And a project that I was just really so thrilled for her about because she was an integral part of that project. And then she left Sheila to join the in-house team at Tiffany's. Tiffany's was redoing their flagship store, and Kimberly has been working on the flagship store and really been using, like almost exclusively using the skills that she learned in school, but learning that she's got to sell that every day to Peter Marino. She's got to sell that to the senior staff there. She's got to sell that to the salespeople there. And now she's working on all 96 stores throughout the world, and just moved from New York. Well, Newark. She lived here in Newark. She just moved from Newark to Miami. And if you get down to Miami and you go to the design district and you see the Tiffany store, the exterior is all of Kimberly's work. And I believe it's a testimony to the fact that she really, from the day I met her, she believed strongly in the work that she's doing, the value of what she's bringing to the work. If we were all sitting down having lunch, she could tell you some, stories of how she was perhaps treated in a way that would have diminished her self-confidence and her courage. But she is the person who gave me that vision that you've got to walk into every presentation like God sent you there. And to that end, that's my three major points, you guys. Number one, this is a business. Number two, you've got to take selling very, very seriously. You've got to know exactly what you believe in, and you've got to protect your confidence. And if we have time at the end, I got a story about three little frogs, but we'll move on to our
Well,
other.
Well, I think we'll definitely have to hear about the frogs later. We'll
Yeah,
make sure
right?
we have time. Marilyn, I want to follow up. You said something so interesting, which is about you're really talking about being able to sell an idea or sell a concept.
Yes.
That's what we are doing. And what do you feel like is the best way to learn how to sell an idea or concept?
Um, I think the best way to learn outside of, like I suggested,
Working in sales, right?
yeah, working in sales, I think practicing in selling, right? Um, Practice selling even with your family members or your friends. Say, I have this idea for and then you finish whatever that is. Um, and I want you to be open to hearing everything from like, that's crazy or that's stupid or who's going to want that, right? What you want to do is you want to become good at overcoming objections. That's a principle of sales, overcoming objections. But you want to practice at that. Um, and again, like one day, Jeffrey, I want to get in front of students and like, we could role play selling.
Yeah.
Uh, and in a safe space where, we sort of talk about like, you know, how to overcome an objection and then actually practicing doing that. But one thing I just heard recently was how to shift the conversation in your direction. Instead of looking for yes, look for no. In other words, the client says, if the question isn't, so do you want to get started on the project right now? Right? A person can say yes or no, as opposed to saying, um, so you're not opposed to so are you opposed to doing this project right now? Oh, no, I'm not opposed to that. Right? You see what I'm saying? I'm getting a yes by extracting a no. And uh but it takes practice. I don't think it comes easily to people. I think selling is the kind of thing that feels very self-conscious for any of us, myself included. I have a lot of folks, in fact, some of you all today, and people will say to me, oh my God, you're so good. You are so good at speaking. I'm really very self-conscious about speaking. I'm very nervous about speaking and talking with people, but I try to apply these techniques that I have learned over time from other people who have been in sales training.
I'm glad you brought up starting a career or maybe mid-level going to the D&D building. I began my career there.
Ah,
My first internship when I was in college in Georgia was with an interior designer in Georgia. But my second internship, which was the one that actually counted for internship credit, was with Henson and Company in the D&D building. And I chose that because I wanted to learn absolutely as much as I could about wall covering and textiles.
sure.
And what that gave me was I ended up being there an entire year, not just the semester. When I went to work for a design firm a year later, I knew everything I needed to know about suitability of material, this
Yeah,
fabric for this, suitability of that fabric for this, suitability of that wall covering. And I also knew about lighting because there was a lighting component of that showroom. So I went into a firm knowing some really important required information that those who don't have that experience have to learn as they go working in the firm.
absolutely.
So the firm could feel confident hiring me as a junior designer, knowing that I understood this is suitable for that, that's suitable for that. So I think it's such a valuable experience. And it also
That was so great,
it was
Jeffrey.
so and I actually ended up going back there for a second chapter and it became the showroom manager years later. But
Oh,
it was, to
wow.
me, it was the foundation. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm curious, Marilyn, looking back now
Mm.
on your career, what moment do you feel like was a pivotal moment where you, looking back on it now, you go, wow, that's when everything shifted into high gear? What was the moment for you thus far in your career where you feel like it was the wow, we just shifted into high gear, but you didn't know it maybe at the time, looking
You
back on it?
know, I have to say it was probably at my least glamorous job, which was at Cabinets to Go. I was I worked in the showroom selling. I worked in the warehouse offloading container trucks. You guys, I can offload a
Oh
50
my gosh.
foot container truck. I can load one. Um,
Uh-uh.
I I I think it was that there was well, it's two things, Jeffrey. HGTV is really big on I'm sorry, Cabinets to Go is big on HGTV, and a lot of times my job would be to work with the producers, the show producers, on what they were going to do. And I realized that a lot of the designers there really leaned on the detailed knowledge of being an interior design of like what it takes. And I learned so much about kitchen designing that I realized I knew more than a lot of people who were on TV. Being
Hmm.
on TV is, you guys, that's another conversation. Many the people on TV, they are spokespeople, or it's about entertaining people as opposed to really understanding design. And this is the beauty of being a student. You're gonna realize there's gonna be some aha moments like that. So that's one. And then I think the other was when I was interviewed by Forbes, and they were asking me about fine art and design. And I realized that I had something viable and important to say about my perspective of design, right? About my perspective in interior design. And I realized that my perspective was mine and it wasn't anyone else's. And that's the reason this journalist was calling to speak to me about this. She had said, I heard you know a lot about art and that art is a really big part of what you do. And I need for you to talk about that. So I would say that those were those two moments. In both of those moments, though, and I want to emphasize this, I was by myself. There wasn't a crowd cheering. I wasn't on stage in front of a spotlight. I think that these aha moments come to any of us in sort of a solitary moment, and I think it helps to solidify your confidence in what you're doing.
Love that. We do have a question from a student. Vanessa Bochev says, Marilyn, I loved your talk and you have such meaningful insight. I would love to know what was the hardest lesson you have learned through your profession of interior design, something that was difficult, but you have overcome it and learned a lesson from it.
So, gosh, I mean, I could almost become like emotional and come to tears about it. Not because you guys, I'm like emotionally weak. It's just I am a sort of an emotional person. I think it's what I've said, and I've learned to say it in almost a perfunctory way, but that this is subjective work. I have been on the bad side of critique and criticism. And that's where I mean, you heard me earlier say it's really important to protect your confidence. Um, I've had people say, I've had it said to me one time, "Hey, we really don't want you to talk or say anything. You're just supposed to take notes." It's a long story, and I could tell it another time. But I just remember feeling in the moment, like feeling kind of demoralized. And it was only afterwards and away from that circumstance that I really had to evaluate the fact that hey, I'd been on site on that project all week talking and making suggestions and really moving the project along. And this person had just come in on the last day, um, and said that to me. And I think that I hope I'm answering. Tell me the question again, because I hope I'm answering. I want to make sure.
A hard lesson you learned, and it was difficult, but you've overcome it and learned.
Okay, so that was to me that was a hard lesson, and I feel like I see it happen over and over again that people are evaluated in a way that isn't fair to their who they are and the value of what they're contributing. So how I overcame it specifically was a lot of self-talk. And I mean, honestly, if you've got to stand up and talk to your dog in the morning and say, I am the greatest, good morning, Spot. I'm the greatest. You're standing in front of the greatest designer that ever lived, right? I mean, you've gotta talk to yourself and affirm, how great you are. And if you look at people who are doing like exceptional, extraordinary things, at some point, why, you know, they spent a lot of time talking to themselves about how great they are, how great they were going to become. Michael Jordan, he got cut from the JV team. Imagine that, Michael Jordan. Um, you know, uh, Kobe Bryant was told that he wasn't going to be able to graduate from school. But now, who doesn't go up for a layup and go, Kobe, right? Um, again, you guys, I don't want to give you a whole bunch of homework, but there's, in terms of like how to build up your self-talk and how to practice that. Um, we all know who Dochi is, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Show of hands, everybody knows who Dochi is.
Even I know who that is.
Right. Okay. So a thing that I know about Dochi is that when she was at her lowest, like she'd been fired from some kind of like hourly wage job, she got a book called The Artist's Way. It is, you guys, it's a life-changing experience, this book. So it's not just that you're going to be reading. There are tangible, relevant exercises to do every single day as you're reading this book. And I believe that when you go through this, and this is a book written for creatives about how to build yourself as a creative, right? And if you can't, if you feel like reading the book is going to be too much, it is available on Amazon as a book you can download and listen to. I have found it to be just immensely helpful in terms of what I'm saying, how to overcome, the kind of fear that can be instilled in a person when you're, you know, subjectively evaluated in a way that's not affirming to who you are. But, last week, seeing her accept those Grammy
Grammys.
Awards and watching the precision of her performance, if you go back and look at her performance, we'd not ever seen anything like that before. We'd not seen costuming like that. We'd not heard lyrics like that. We'd not seen staging like that ever, ever, ever. So she had to have created that in a space where she was by herself in an environment where somebody would have said, "No, I don't think that's going to work," right? So I want you all to realize that overcoming, the kind of difficult moments or intervals in your career, the way to overcome that is going to be how everybody else overcomes that, and that's by a lot of self-talk and protecting your self-confidence.
Just so you all know, I posted it as soon as Marilyn mentioned the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I put a link in the chat box to that, but I've also just put a link to in the chat box for The Artist Way. I'm going to ask you one more question,
Sure.
Marilyn, and then we're going to move on to Tammy. Nadine would like to know, and Ashley Masano, I saw your question. We're gonna work that into some conversation in a bit. Nadine wants to know. She's so impressed by the fact that you were interviewed and quoted in Forbes. But she's wondering if you recall what were the steps that put that in place? Do you remember what led to you getting in Forbes and to get that level of publicity? How did that actually happen?
So I'll tell you, and I'm going to try and tell the story short. I was in Los Angeles I'd gone out to Los Angeles because I have family out there, but I wrapped it into a trip to see the Pasadena Show House. And because a good friend of mine, Ridma Brower, was in the show house. And I made it my point, you guys, and here's a lesson. Talk to everybody, hand your card out to everybody. I made it a point to talk to every single designer that was at the show house that day. And the designers introduced me to their friends. So some of them were art advisors. There was reporters out there. There were journalists out there. There were photographers. I definitely jumped in and got in pictures. You guys notice I'm wearing this bright colored shirt? That's because photographers will take pictures of people who are wearing anything other than black. I'm just gonna, unless you're famous, you can wear black, but try to dress in colors that make photographers say, "Hey, can I get your picture?" So the next day there was an event called Legends. It's a big thing in LA. It's Design Week in LA. And I was at a panel discussion. I was seated at a panel discussion, and one of the people I'd met the day before said, "Hey, we're all going out to dinner. We'd love to have you to join us for dinner." And it was like some really fancy designers from all of California. So I'm there at the dinner, and I'm seated next to the publicist who was organizing the dinner. And I say, "Yeah, I really want to try to, build my profile out here, like some of the people seated at this table." And she says, "Have you ever heard of HARO?" Which doesn't exist anymore. It was Help a Writer Out. And I said, "Oh, no, I don't." She said, "I'll connect you in HARO." And I would read, posts from journalists who would say, "We're looking for an interior designer who knows something about color or about trends or about this or about that." And I would always answer those things. And maybe I got in, if there was 20 of them, maybe I got in 6 of them. But at one point, um, the art and design writer at Forbes saw an article that I had been quoted in, and she called me based on that. And I just remember thinking that, there's not an introduction that's ever wasted. There's not an opportunity that you can't take to meet people and expand, how people see you and who sees you and who remembers you. And that's been, when I think about that being in Forbes, I was like, Forbes, I didn't know that they cared, but they do, because people with money value design and fine art.
Love it. So it's building blocks. One block
Correct.
led to another block, led to another block, and the next thing you know, you're climbing the ladder. Yeah, it's
Yes.
amazing. It's those blocks. Okay, Tammy Bolden. We are so excited to have Tammy back in our fold in New Jersey. And so let's go, TB.
Well, how do I follow that? My God. So Marilyn focused a lot of her talk on sales. So I was just over here scrambling to rewrite some of my stuff because she really focused a lot of her talk on one of the things that I really wanted to focus on, sales. you can't deny that that is a big part of what we do, as being an untold truth. And I'll tell you a quick story. I worked for Ethan Allen in New York City for a few years. And this was when I had worked on my own, and then I had gone to work for Ethan Allen when my kids were going into college. I have twin boys, so we had twins in college at the same time. So we needed a little extra income. Nothing, we couldn't really rely on how sporadic sometimes design can be. So I went to work for Ethan Allen, and that's when I realized how focused the industry is on sales. You have to be able to not only sell your idea, but you got to sell the product. And for Ethan Allen, to me, it was more of a sales focused job, which I did not like and was not my forte. And most people like, really? People see me as an outgoing, gregarious person, but sales takes persuasion, and you have to be able to convince people of your point of view. And I didn't understand that how important that was in design, because we weren't taught that. We were taught to be creatives. We were taught how to design, but we weren't taught, and in my opinion, we weren't taught how to sell our design. So needless to say, I was not that very good at the sales part of my job, and being frustrated, every month I wasn't meeting my numbers. And one day I just said, I can't keep doing this like to myself. And eventually they're going to fire me. So I said, you know what? Let me quit before they fire me. And so, but it helped me understand that being a designer is being a salesperson. And so when I left there, I said, okay, what am I going to do now? I don't want to go through this again. I'm just going to work for myself. I'm going to start my business up again. But this time I understood how important it was to sell my idea to clients. So that's my little story about sales. One of the things I think that is important that we don't learn in design school is have a mission statement for you as a designer and for your business, if you do intend on running your own firm. For me, I'll just read my statement really quickly. I believe that everyone deserves to live and work in a space that reflects their needs. My design philosophy is lifestyle is the inspiration and foundation for successful design. And my business philosophy is to make interior design accessible to anyone. So I want people to be able to appreciate the beauty around them and to make a statement with their environment. And I think that's very important, so you can have a direction on who you're going to be as a designer. So you can have your voice, and you can sell your voice and your ability to your client. One thing people know that, most people know that designers or salespeople are, I'm sorry, let me back up. People buy into who you are, not what you do. There's tons of designers out there, but they want to work with you because you as a designer and your style speaks to them. So I think it's very important to understand who you are and what you want to get out of design. One of the other things that Marilyn touched on is understanding that this is a business. This is a business. And I think that is one of the biggest things that needs to be touched on more in design education. I've mentioned that to other professionals, that there needs to be more of a focus on the business of design, because there is so much that goes into bringing a design to fruition, that you learn in design school how to be creative, how to make a beautiful design. But getting that design to real life, that takes a lot. And that's something that, that's one of the untold truths that people don't really understand. You've got to know the right trades to work with: electricians, carpenters, woodworkers, installers. You've got to know what trade you need for an activity or an installation. You may think you want to do a great accent wall. Well, who's going to design it? Who's going to install it? You've got to know the right people to get your design to fruition. You've got to know sales reps. You got to have relationships with the vendors, with the vendor sales reps. One of the other things is, again, this is a business, so we want to make money. We want to pay our bills. Having relationships with the vendors and working with particular vendors on a regular basis, they will give you a larger percentage of a discount on the product. So at the end of the day, you can not only make a wonderful design or create a wonderful design for your client, but also make money for you, because we're doing this because not only because we love design, but we also want to be able to live and pay our bills. So that's something that I think really needs to be studied and focused more. And I think one of the things that you can really help with that is I encourage all students to do an internship. If you have to do it for free, then that's what you got to do. If you don't get paid for it, that's fine. But it's critical to understand how the steps in getting a design to fruition. And Marilyn mentioned that, she worked, for cabinets to go for $10 an hour. But ultimately, she learned the ins and outs of kitchen cabinet design. So you've got to have an internship. One of the other things I want to touch on is create a niche for yourself. Create a niche for yourself as a designer. Have a specialty, if you will. When I was in design school, I thought I wanted to be a lighting designer. But after I studied a little bit, I was like, oh, this is boring. There's nothing flashy or fabulous, because you watch, you look at shelter magazines and you watch HGTV and you're like, oh, I want to do that. And so lighting design was not glamorous. But when I got out of design school and I was working for a couple of designers, I noticed that each of those designers that I worked for had, as Jeffrey mentioned, could tell you the ins and outs of fabric, textiles. Looking at a fabric, she was able to say, oh, that's about a 50% linen and viscose. And I was like, what? But she understood the ins and outs of a fabric. So I think it's important to know exactly what you want to do in order to be successful. I decided that I wanted to go into kitchen and bath design because I was a real estate agent for almost 10 years. And in selling homes, one of the first things that clients would look for was the condition of the kitchen and the condition of the bathroom, because those are two of the most expensive expenditures in renovating a house, or if you want to, if you buy a house and it needs to be renovated, that's going to be the biggest expense. And so using my background as a real estate agent, I realized, well, hey, that's a specialty that I could really, market myself as and really be successful. So that's kind of how my niche was developed from my background in as a real estate agent. So I think it's important that everyone understand what they like. There were a couple of students who, when I was in design school, who were going into set design. That's another specialty area. There was a girl who was working as an intern at hospitality firm. So she knew that that's what she wanted to focus on. She wanted to focus her career on. So I think it's important to, you can be a generalist if you'd like, but I think you'll have more success if you have an area that you can focus on. And then your client base, you'll know who your client base is, because that's another big aspect of, I think, that we don't learn really in design school. You've got to know who your client is. If you have a specialty, then you can target that client base. You know, you can go to specific trade shows that focus on that industry. There's one, what's the one? BDNY Boutique Design show that's in New York City that focuses on hospitality, the hospitality industry. So those are the kinds of trade shows that you need to really focus on when you realize where you want to go with your career. With that in mind, I'm going to the Kitchen and Bath Show, which is next week in Vegas. So you've got to know, I think it's important to know exactly where you want to go in your career, and collaborate with others. That's another big one. Recently, I had the pleasure of working with Marilyn Laverne on a project that I was hired for in New York City. It was the Drug Policy Alliance, and they had just renovated their offices, but they needed to do the finishing touches, and they wanted to acquire some art. Well, I could do the finishing touches, but I knew nothing about fine art. So that's why I called my friend Marilyn Laverne, and we did a wonderful, wonderful installation with her expertise and her guidance. I didn't know anything about it, so I found somebody who did. So that's very important when you have a project that requires something that's outside of your wheelhouse. Don't be afraid to collaborate with the appropriate person. That's at the end of the day, you want to make your client happy. So you've got to make sure that you've got the resources to make sure you get the project done. And with that said, mistakes can be big and costly. I've learned that the hard way. And that's something that, again, you don't find out until you're in the real world. That old saying, measure twice, cut once. No truer statement can be said in design. You've got to make sure you measure everything, do a complete site measurement. Don't rely on architect's drawings, on someone else's measurements. You need to take the measurements yourself. I've had instances where I had sent a intern to take measurements for some window treatments. Once they were done, they were too small. Had I gone with her or maybe even expressed exactly what needed to be done, then we wouldn't have had that issue. But again, mistakes can be very costly. So make sure you take all the steps that are necessary to make sure that you're getting the appropriate and correct information to make sure that your project comes to fruition. So that's all I got for now.
That was so very insightful, Tammy. I'm going to pose a question for you. Thus far in your career journey, what's the highlight thus far?
Thus far, I think working on this new project that I have, well, it's been in the works for a little while. It's a 42-unit apartment building that an architect has hired me to select all of the finishes. To know that he thought that I was capable of doing something like that, I didn't see myself like that. I didn't realize that, other people, saw me as
That's amazing. I'm
capable.
so glad to hear that project is happening, because we talked a little, you let me know that it was something that was possible. It's happening.
It's happening. It's
So
actually
exciting.
starting to gear up. They broke ground and now they're starting to build. And so I am putting the finishing boards together when I come back from KBIS to present to the architect and the builder. So Yeah,
Awesome.
it's really and that is just a wonderful, it's a wonderful feeling to know that you're seen in the industry, that people think that you're capable of doing that. I'm still like, oh God, I'm gonna do it. I'm just like, how am I gonna make this happen? But you've got to plan. It's about planning. I recently, and have been in the business for 15 years. I recently hired a business coach. I realized, you know what, I've been doing this for a very long time, but I could be doing it better. And so having this business coach has really helped me um, analyze my projects, realize that I need to get a better profit margin, organizing myself. And in organizing myself, I'm able to, put together my processes to make sure that I cover everything that needs to be done for this 42 unit building.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. And I think that's another thing. Keep learning. You've got to keep learning. Don't, just because you graduate from design school, you got to, if you're a member of ASID, you got to take CEU. So that's very helpful in keeping your knowledge base growing and learning and understanding that the industry continues to change, and you've got to change with it.
Yeah, Suha actually posted a question, and I'm glad she did because it was something that you brought up earlier that I wanted to touch on. I am a perfect example of someone who had no idea what he was doing when he decided to first launch his own firm. And I knew almost immediately, I would say within 6 months to a year, that I had made a mistake and launched my firm way too early in my journey. And I actually went back to work for others because so Suha, because I just feel like way too many designers don't understand the business aspect, and then they jump into the deep end and then they're like, oh my God, what the heck is happening? Especially usually, to be quite honest, come about April 15th, if you know what I mean. And you haven't had anyone walking you along that journey of what you need to be taking out every month and what you need to be putting aside, and the tax bill comes, and then you go like, oh, yeah. But Suha's question is, she's talking about how you'd worked in sales, you had your own firm, then you went to Ethan Allen, then you went back, and she's wondering if you, I guess from when you first started, before you went to Ethan Allen, looking on back that now, do you think that that was too early, or do you wish you had worked under more interior designers to see the pros and cons of starting a business of your own? And what's your words of wisdom for how does one actually know when they're ready to start a business?
So that's such a loaded question because I have so many facets of it. I worked for two designers for a short time, and I felt this was a second career. This is a second career for me, and I was in my 40s when I went back to school, and I was like, okay, I can't make $10 an hour. I have three children, a husband, three children, kids in college. Like, I can't do this. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go out here and do it on my own. So I felt because I had real world experience or other work experience, I could bring that to my own design firm. Just watching those other women having, worked there, I picked up tricks and picked up things and kind of knew a little bit about what needed to happen. But I just said, you know what? I'm smart enough. I think I can do this. So I went and did it. I made a lot of mistakes. And a lot of it was just trial by fire. I wish I had had a mentor who could mentor me in developing a new business. It didn't even have to be a design firm mentor. It could have been just, another entrepreneur who could have kind of helped me guide me in starting my business. But I just did it because I felt like I need to make a certain amount of money, and I didn't want to go out and work as hard as I would have to work for what they were willing to pay. So I thought I can do it myself. Little did I know that it was harder to work for myself and less pay working for myself. But I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. But I did when it came time for my kids to go to college, I had to sacrifice what I wanted for the good of my family. And that's why I went to work for Ethan Allen. But then when I left Ethan Allen, I'm a very spiritual person, and I was like, God, if this is going to work, you gotta hold my hand. You gotta guide me. And if it's meant to be, you will help me bring it to fruition. And I guess he was like, knocked me on the head and said, okay, you got to do things differently, girl, if you want this to work. And so I decided to do things differently. I talked to people. I actually talked to a friend of mine. I forget about this. I talked to a friend of mine who lives in LA, who has a very successful business. And he just gave me some pointers on, things I needed to do to kind of market myself, because he's a master marketer. And so I learned that I needed to do things differently, and I did. And things started to change, and it got better. It got really, really well. It went really well after I committed myself to making sure I do things differently in order to succeed.
That's wonderful. Another question's come in for you, Tammy. And so if you could answer this, and then we will go to our third panelist today. So Vanessa Bochev says you've said such powerful words, and thank you. I would love to know, what is some advice you can give to us young emerging designers who are just about to start our first job outside of an internship and are feeling nervous?
Uh, ask.
She's a Kane senior who's graduating in May. You've been there, Tammy.
Okay, good.
You've been there, yeah.
Ask questions. You know what? Someone said to me, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's just the one that's not asked. So I feel like ask questions, ask about what you want to know about, figure out, and also find that person who wants to help you develop in your career. Find a mentor. I think that's probably one of the biggest things like I said, I wish I had done, is found a mentor. Find a mentor, someone to help you, guide you in your career, who will give you real advice, and feedback and criticism in the right way, of course, who's going to help you develop as a designer, as a business person, and understand the back end of design, understand the business of design. There's so much administrative work that goes behind into making a design come to fruition. If you work for someone and you can help them, depending on what size the firm, if this is a large firm, then you're probably not going to be doing the accounting. But if it's a smaller firm and you can help with other aspects of your job, that's invaluable. I mean, for a business owner to know that they can rely on, a junior person to help out and see the big picture come to fruition. And that's invaluable. Find a mentor and learn all you can and help out when you can.
Okay, awesome. Let's turn it over to Denise Pugh to hear her words of wisdom and the untold truths that have come for her since she finished design school. It's yours, Denise.
It's great to be the last person speaking, right?
Yes.
I mean, when you think about it, I got to go past Marilyn, the president of ASID. I got to go past Tammy, who's like, soaring in different areas of her career and working on a 42 unit building. Like, that's a lot to follow. Thank you very much, you two. And I can say that because I actually admire both of them. They have definitely been a pivotal part of my journey. So just to give you a little bit more background than my bio had indicated. So I didn't know when I was growing up that design was a thing. I grew up in Long Island. I was in the suburbs, and that wasn't part of what was told to me about having that as a career. It was, you know, what were you thinking of going to school for? Are you going for business? Are you going for medical? What are you going to school for? Right? All I knew was I was going to go to school. It was going to be business. I was thinking I was going to get into real estate. And the side note, my mother thinks it's very funny. My husband and I actually own a real estate management company. That wasn't the kind of real estate I was thinking. So it was definitely something different. So I went to school, got my bachelor's in business, got my master's in marketing. But there were things about me that was creative. I did love math, but I also loved to draw, to sketch, to do those kind of things. But like I said, design was not in my future. It was not something that I thought was a thing. And so with that, I worked in the city. I was going to college and I thought I might want to go into working in the hospitality industry. I asked a college professor, she was going to be having some people that she knew. I said, I'm interested in, like hotel. She brought someone in who actually I wound up working for him. He was the general manager of the Sky Club later on. I did work with him. Um, I was literally the assistant in the office to the Sky Club, which was considered a high-end restaurantier kind of place. They did private events. So if you know Maury Povich, I was there when he launched his talk show before it became a thing, right? So I met people in that kind of industry. He had a nephew who worked at the Waldorf Astoria. So when I moved from there, I went to the Waldorf Astoria. And I always said I wanted to work in hotel. So I worked in the banquet and catering department. Then I moved to the marketing department. I went and got my marketing degree. Thought I was going to go into marketing. My life pivoted in different directions. And sometimes you really don't know. You think you know when you're at a certain age, but then you look back when you get older and you realize there were parts of my life that all tied into design, and I didn't realize that that was a thing. So what I mean by that is I had certain experiences with certain friends. I went to certain people's homes, and for some reason, the space when I was in it affected me, whether it was space planned correctly, whether it was the coloring in the room, whether it was the lighting, but I didn't know it was a thing, right? So I just thought, why do you have that sofa over there? That doesn't look right in that space, right? Or if it was a sectional that wasn't laid out correctly, I was like, can you, if you don't have anything to do, can we rearrange this a little bit? I just want to see how this is going to look. They were like, sure. Change it. All of a sudden, I'm getting an expression. I'm getting like oh my God, I didn't think of it that way. So I was like, oh, it must be a thing. I get married. I move to California. We have a house that needs to be renovated. And I picked selections. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted my house to be. And it was great. Then a couple of years later, we were doing a renovation on a bathroom, our primary bathroom. And I think that that was the moment that I realized that what I wanted the space to be was sometimes what people don't necessarily see. So a contractor, he walked me through a lot of spaces, and a lot of my experience has been on site. Not necessarily, I wasn't like Tammy and Marilyn, who actually worked in a showroom or worked directly with a contractor. I actually did a lot of the things that I've experienced myself. And I took the time to really learn it while I was going through it. Fast forwarding, we moved from California here to New Jersey. I was home with kids. I had two beautiful little ones that was running me nuts. And I didn't want to move back to the East Coast. I grew up in the East Coast. Yes, I have not a problem with the East Coast, but I got it comfortable in California, but we moved back to the East Coast. When we came back here, I needed something for me. So Bergen Community College was they had a program, and they had some continuing education courses, and they had those kind of things, and they wound up having something for interior design. So I said, interior design must be a thing, right? So I said, let me take 2 classes just to give me something to do. Both of the kids are in preschool, in preschool, so I had part of my day available. Let me take 2 classes. I took the introduction to interior design, and I took the business of interior design. Now, that wasn't business to what we know business is outside of design school. Okay. It's a very broad look at what the business of interior design is. They're not going to talk to you in regards to how you have to be almost a psychologist with your clients. They're not going to talk to you about all the things that run a business to make money. They don't teach you those things. Um, but I found that those 2 classes actually like springboarded me into, let me go through the program. Let me go through learning how to sketch a space. Let me learn how to um, draw out a floor plan to scale, right? Let me learn different things about color. Let me learn different things about fabrics. You learn so much. And as you know, interior design has many different facets. So one of the things that they both mentioned was sales. I'm not a salesperson. I'm with you, Tammy. I don't like the idea of a sale, right? But I do know how to sell myself without selling myself, right? And it's you being your true, authentic self when you're speaking to someone. Being engaging, making sure you're listening, making sure you're hearing the person when they're talking, making sure that if you don't understand what they're actually trying to say to you, ask the question. Can you clarify? Do you mean this? Right? Because you don't want to assume, based on what someone actually said, that that's what they truly mean. It may need a little more in-depth and broader discussion, so that way you can try to avoid as many mistakes as possible moving forward. Even if it comes down to when you say, what's your favorite color? And they don't know, they definitely know what they don't like. So find out what they don't like. If they don't like green, green's not going in there. Okay. So my journey had in coming out of design school, so I did that early on. My kids are now in their 20s. I didn't go into working for anybody at that point. I really just took it because I needed something for me. But it helped me over 10 years of working on projects in my real estate business. So there were projects in New York that I knew how to work out space planning and know how to get through a renovation where, okay, this is where I'm going to make sure that this tiny little 25 square foot kitchen is going to be opened up into a 75 square foot kitchen. Okay. And those are the things that I learned, and I built my experience on the job. That's where I built a lot of my experience. It was on the job. Now, when I decided to launch my own business, it was right before COVID, and nobody expected the whole world to shut down. And just when I thought I was going to be able to go out there and meet more people and hand out my business card and show them my brochure and give them my personality and say, hey, do you have a kitchen that you need me to remodel? Whatever it is, the world shut down. I have to say that that probably was the best thing that happened to me, because I wound up taking a business course for design. And it taught me the process. So I took a course specifically for doing the process. What is the process in a design project? There is always a process. You don't know what the process is because you naturally in your head just do it, but there is a process, right? So from when it comes from you meeting the person, you're having a consultation meeting with them, you're starting out with your concept, you're pulling your concepts and boards together, you're pulling out samples, you're going to have a presentation, then you're going to say, okay, everything works out. We got all the check marks going, right? Now you got to start ordering. Now you got to follow up with the procurement. Who's going to do the ordering? Is the client doing the ordering? Or are you going to do the ordering? That's part of your process, right? And so when all of the things are going to come in, is it going directly to the person's house? Are you going to send it to the receiver? What is the process? When it gets to the house, who's installing it? Are you relying on the client to install it? If they got money, they're looking at you. Okay. If they don't have money, they're going to sit there and say, oh, I can check it. I can see if everything. Well, make sure you let them know in the process, if they're going to receive it, if they're going to check it, it is their responsibility. You have to know where you are going to draw the line on who has the responsibility for what. You don't have the responsibility on contractors' work. That's their responsibility. You can oversee it. You can look over and make sure that what your vision for your project is going to be, that you can discuss with them. But their hands-on work on install is their work, and that's their responsibility. Make sure you're covered. Who is going to make certain decisions when things are installed? Are you going to have them install it and then you come and style it and then you're going to have a photo shoot? That's all a process, right? So I think that when COVID had hit, that was when I said, okay, I got time. Didn't have a client at the time, right? So I took this course and it opened my eyes to something that I didn't realize was what was going to take me moving forward for future projects. What I took with me deciding to open my business, it's kind of like what Tammy said, right? Um, I know what I could do. I could figure this out because I brought my experience of already owning a business, thinking it was the same. Accounting in real estate is not the same as accounting in interior design. There isn't just money in and money out. There's a whole lot of other moving parts within the process that you got to figure out where that money's got to go. And you got to pull out your tax money, like they said, so that way when tax time comes, I even had to learn about sales tax, which is done quarterly. Sales and use tax is done quarterly. As Tam shakes her head, right? And I have to say, she was one that told me about it. Okay, I had no clue. So there are things that you collaborate with other business owners, with other designers, with people who have been there and who have known things that they can actually guide you and help you and save you a couple of those steps so you don't fall off a cliff, basically. Um, the other thing is, I would say, I wish I had a mentor about 5 years ago. I wish I started with a mentor. I wish I started with having someone to really guide me, but I know myself and I know myself and I'm learning more about myself, right? So I knew that a mentor would have been important, but I felt like I could figure it out. And you know what, let me just go to the events or let me just go to High Point or let me just introduce myself. That should be enough. It's not enough. When you decide that you want to run your own business, you start off alone and you're in your own silo. You have to be out there. Either you're going to work for a company and you can see the difference, or you work by yourself, but you're going to make sure that you put yourself out there periodically, a couple times a month, once a week, whatever it is. But you have to connect with the outside world because, yes, design can be center focused. you're sitting there, you're working on your plans, and your brain is going, and you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, this works, this works, this works. But there could have been something that you might have asked somebody that had a different idea that could have helped you, right? Um, just a side story, my son, who's 25 now, when he graduated uh, college, he graduated just when we were coming out of COVID, so 2021. When he got his first job, he was going to work in the music industry. It was a company my husband used to work for, and they had what they called was the hybrid schedule, right? So you only go in there a couple days a week, and they had everybody on like a skeleton shift. Now, if anybody knows about how the music industry is, that industry is always hustling and bustling and noisy and full of people. That's what I knew my husband, he developed his whole career in. My son gets there and it's like you're in silent, like there is no one in the office. And he didn't get the experience that my husband got from working in this company. That's almost what it feels like when you're when you're working for yourself and you don't connect with other people. You're in that, you're not getting the full experience. So yes, do I wish that I could have probably gone back and um, maybe work for someone else, but that wasn't my journey, right? At the time when I first moved back here to moved back to the East Coast and moved here to New Jersey, I had two little people. By the time I finished and got that first certificate in the program, my kids weren't taking activities, right? And I was still running a real estate business. So where I got my experience was learning it through internal projects, big projects. They were renovation projects, but it wasn't working with other people. So I envy a lot of you right now. Like you guys who are just starting off, freshmen, all the way to graduating seniors, you guys have the opportunity to really put your foot forward in a way that will save you a lot of time in the long run and propel you a whole lot faster. Like doing this is considered like a second career for me, you know. But yeah, I the only other thing that I would probably say is don't give yourself excuses of why you can't do something. I think that's what holds you back when, especially when you get a little older. Um, when I look at my kids, I say, you guys don't know how to see the side of something not happening, not working. Hold on to that. Continue to have your vision that it's going to happen and it will happen. You can be an introvert. Like I consider myself an introvert. But believe in what you're doing. Like Marilyn said an hour ago. And also consider yourself worthy, that you're worthy of what you are going to put yourself out there for, right? And decide what avenue of design you want to do, because there are a lot of different areas. Some people who are considered like, I don't like people, they just want to do drawings. And if that's what you want to do, then sell yourself to do drawings, right? If you're a person that loves to create and you want to build furniture, then figure out what is the great furniture store or furniture vendor that you can go and work at. Samuelson is a great furniture place. If you've never gone, definitely go. I think a lot of you have already gone because Jeffrey always makes it a point that we put it in the schedule somewhere. As I'm program chair, I'm probably gonna have to do something next year for that. So but other than that, if you have any questions, just let me know. But hey,
Denise, that was really, I have to say, so beautiful. I've actually said this to Denise before, not that long ago, and I'm going to say it again, and it's going to lead to a question I would love for you to expand upon. The one thing that I have such respect for Denise about is that Denise is, I feel like, in a constant state of um, expanding her knowledge base while expanding her potential in the profession. Remember, we had that conversation in early January when I was in Texas and we were talking about things, and you were about to go to a particular conference. And what has that done for you, Denise? Like, what has it done for you? I'm thinking specifically about your connection to what you've done with Luann, your connections to going to conferences. Yeah, I think you were going to a conference that it had nothing, it wasn't even a design conference you were planning to go to. It was something around entrepreneurship or business or something. I
This
was
year
so
or another year?
I thought it was this year. You were thinking about going to a
Oh, this year,
conference.
yes. So, uh, I went to High Point in 2021 for the very first time, and Tammy was there with me. That was when it was right after COVID, things opened up, and I had looked at only attending a lot of interior design things, right? Such as going to High Point, going to KBiz. I went to the IDS conference, which is the Interior Design Society. I went to that conference. I also did a summit semi-conference that Luann Nigara, who is a window treatment professional in Livingston, New Jersey, she is definitely a great contact to have. And she usually does like this Power Talk conference. She's done it like every other year or something like that. And everything had to do with just interior design, nothing else. I had said to myself the end of 2024 last year that I wanted to do something that put me in a room with people who don't do what I do, could be potential clients, and I can actually learn something a little different from a business perspective. So I decided to register for this conference called ROI Summit. It was supposed to have been in January.
That's it. Yes.
Right. And the conference was postponed because it was in California and it was the week after the fires had happened in California. So they have postponed it. Now it is in June. So I will be going in June, and that will be a recap for that. But I decided that I needed to do something um, that gave me a different insight on business that was not just interior design related. And I'm always an avid learner. I sometimes I have to hold myself back to say, "Do you really need to pay for that course? I think you already know that information." You know, a lot of things cross over, but then there are some things that you can get that are other ideas that can help you with what you currently are doing. So that's what I was deciding.
Yeah, that just always, honestly, and I have to say, if anyone wants to see examples of what I would consider really visually beautiful marketing, I think you all should be following Denise. You should follow all three of these, but particularly pay attention to the way that Denise does her marketing. I find your post so engaging, and so I always notice. I first they're visually so beautiful, and then it's like I get drawn into them because they look so good. And then I pay attention to the words, and it's just an interesting way. That's so not my that's not my skill set, right? Like social media is the last thing I have any interest in doing
Oh,
because
believe me, it's the last thing I want to do.
but it scares the heck out of me. It's truly, that is not an exaggeration. It terrifies me. And it causes me to have panic attacks. And then I get inspired by someone like you who it seems very effortless for. And I don't know if that's real, if it's effortless or not, but it seems that way.
It took time. It took time. In 2020, I had to realize, oh crap, I got to put my face out on Instagram now, right? Like, because before I wasn't putting my face, right? It was like I was thinking, oh, just put like some beautiful spaces and, things like that. And the next thing I know, they were like, no, they want to see who's behind the name, right? And so I had to put my face out there. So once I got comfortable putting my face out there, then I said, all right, let me start doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then it just kind of evolved. Um, it it still takes me time because I'm partly considered a perfectionist. It takes me less time now to create a reel, but it still takes me a little bit longer than I want to for the copy. I'm
Nice.
always overthinking my copy. Um, One thing I tell my VA is
What's
I
VA?
need a virtual assistant.
Okay.
So I do have an assistant, but she's virtual. One thing I do tell her is that anything that we put out, I need it to sound like I'm talking to the person or I'm
Mm.
being real with them because they already have the visual. I need to be real with them, even in the words. Maybe people are going to read the words or not, but if they do, they need to know that it sounds like me. I don't want it to sound like I'm selling them something like a robot or anything like that. I need it to sound like me. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how I kind of grew into the social media.
Really good. One final question for you, Denise, that came up, and I feel like that and then Tammy and Marilyn, after Denise shares her answer to this question, I feel like y'all might also have something to jump in on. Nadine is curious, do you have any particular TED Talks or podcasts that you recommend that you think would be helpful? Do you listen to Luann's
I
podcast?
definitely listen to Luann's podcast, which is a well-designed business.
I'll put a link to that.
Yeah, so I definitely listen to that. What's the other podcast that I listen to? I just recently started listening to her, and she's the person that has the ROI Summit, and she is Rachel Rogers, and she talks about we should all be millionaires.
I've heard
And
of her.
that's,
Yeah.
yes, we should all be millionaires. And she has this book called $7 Million Habits, Daily Habits, $7 Million Daily Habits. And it's something that you can do now. It's not something that you wait for that you've made $100,000 and now you want to be a millionaire. It's something where you have $5 and you want to be a millionaire, right? And it just gives you daily habits to think about in order to move you forward. So she has a podcast also. It's called Hello Seven, I believe. I think it's called the Hello Seven. But the other thing I wanted to mention, just to say as a book, since we were listing a couple of books, Worthy. I started reading the book Worthy, and I find that it got into where I was feeling self-conscious about certain things. It made me know how to think of it differently. So one of the chapters I was reading was about rejection and when things don't happen the way you want things to happen. And there was one line that I say to myself every time I start to get a glimmer of thinking that I was being rejected. It says rejection is God's protection.
Amen.
Yeah.
So check out that book.
Perfect. So guys, everyone, I put a link in there for Worthy, the book she's talking about. I put a link in there for Luann Nagara's podcast. You have the link from the books for it. I will tell you, I feel like every single person in the design industry, whether they are a student and emerging professionals or someone who's seasoned for 40 years in the profession, should be reading, following, listening to everything business of home. Business of
Oh,
home.
Far and away.
Me,
yeah.
it's the newspaper slash radio channel slash whatever for our industry. And so businessofhome.com. And I have to say, the articles they have are so great, but then also some of the special events they offer and panel speakers. And so businessofhome.com is also something that should absolutely,
I equate that to the variety of our industry.
right.
Yeah.
For students who don't
Yeah.
know, variety is for the entertainment industry. Business of Home is that for us. So businessofhome.com. It's really
I'm not one who listens to podcasts. I don't retain information that way, but I read Business of Home religiously. That you got to get on that one. And since we're dropping books and we're talking about books that I think are important, this is another one that I think is just critical. Everyone should really read it. It's called The Four Agreements.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is just a
Putting that in a link to that now.
Excellent.
Um, y'all, I 26 years in the industry, and I am walking away from today kind of mind blown, and also so very inspired, and also feeling like, dude, you gotta up it. And so, and I'm imagining that the students must really be like, whoa, what have we just experienced? Because these are three mega professionals who have just kind of rocked our world. So thank y'all so very much. It was so inspiring and so insightful, and just huge, huge, huge thanks. Does anyone else, before I turn it back over to Mariam, a lot of people are, saying thank you, but is there anyone else who has a question they want to get answered? Just to sort of speak now, or hold your peace, or whatever that saying is.
Hold your peace.
Yeah. All right, I'm turning it back over to Mariam.
Could I ask one question?
Yes, go ahead, Nadine.
So I put this in the chat, but it kind of got drowned out. I was saying, assuming you've been through this experience, what is your advice for how you build back up your confidence when you feel defeated by a humbling experience where you might have made a mistake or you feel like you don't belong in the industry, even though you know deep down that you do? Like, this is for all of you.
Amazing question. Great question.
Marilyn touched on that about not letting someone erode your confidence. That's 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 a hard one because I think it comes back to, I don't want this to turn to a therapy session, but um, my father always instilled in me that no one or nothing is better than you. Nothing, you can do anything you put your mind to. If you get knocked down, you get your ass right back up and keep moving. Life, you're gonna make mistakes in life. I have three beautiful children. There's things that I wish I could have done differently, but to this day, I love who my children have become. So you're going to make mistakes. Just don't stay there.
Mhm.
You know, you take any mistake that you learn, I'm sorry, that you experience, and use it as a learning opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing that anybody they get caught up in. I made this mistake. Oh my God, I can't do it. No, that's an opportunity for you to learn, for you to move forward. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but you've just got to pick yourself up, put on your big girl panties, and keep it moving. Because you know what? You may be dwelling in that mistake, but in 2 hours it's forgotten. You're the one who's still dwelling in it. So just take it as a learning opportunity. That's my biggest advice. Don't dwell.
Denise, you want to add anything to that before we turn it back over to Mariam?
I was only going to say that, when I got into the industry and I decided it to be a thing, I was feeling like I had imposter syndrome. I was feeling like I didn't need to be there. And someone said to me, anytime you think that you shouldn't be someplace, or anytime you thought you shouldn't be someplace, get up and go there anyway. And you never know what's going to happen in the end. So there was one event earlier on when I was a student at the time, and it was around the time I met Jeffrey. There was an event I RSVP'd to go to, and I was going to go alone. I didn't know anybody. And the time was ticking and it was time for me to go. And I said to myself, remember, you need to go anyway. And I went, and when I came out of there, I actually met a couple of new people. They made me feel like I belonged there. It wasn't like I felt like I shouldn't be there. So I was like, why was I feeling like I didn't belong? Right? So you have to just don't fall into talking yourself out of something. Like I said before, don't talk yourself out of it. If you got that idea popped into your head that this is something that you should do, keep running with it, right? You may have like, okay, wait, I need to think these through. You might need to plan something out. But if the idea came to you, that means it's something that you need to look into or pursue. And just do it anyway. Don't let somebody talk you out of something that you really have a passion for and that you really feel like you should do.
Love that. Don't let anyone talk you out of something that you have a passion for and you really think you should do. That, to me, that sentence is so beautiful. So let's use that sentence as sort of our mantra for going out today, back to Miriam, and for the rest of the next 15 minutes. But also wake up every day and remember that. It's a beautiful, beautiful statement. Miriam, it's yours.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you really to everyone. As I'm an emerging professional, I'm just starting out. All you said is just meaningful to me. And I'm really taking good advices. I don't know how many emerging professionals graduated and working now we have in the call. But me, myself, I'm really getting a lot in here. And I'm going to use it Monday when I get back to the office. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And we have one more commercial to share for Designing J, our sponsor. Thank you to them. Let me share a screen.
I'm here bopping my head. That was
Me too.
All right. I was like,
Here's the music that we needed in the beginning, right? Yeah, so I'm really speechless to add anything after you all said. I have no words to say. The Marilyn, I can just give it to you to close it up with your beautiful words for this week. As our president.
Marilyn, can I make a quick announcement before we
Yes.
closing words? I would love if everyone on the call would plan to attend the Equity in Design Summit given or sponsored by the ASID New York chapter. It will be held Thursday, September 11th at NYSID, New York School of Interior Design. We're going to discuss the much talked about topic of DEI as of late. And we are going to have some wonderful speakers and panelists who will give you some words of wisdom on the topic. So that's Thursday, September 11th at NYSID, and you'll hear more about it in the coming months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. And I see that Mariana put a link to it in the chat box, everyone. So you can see that. She put a link to the Equity and Design Summit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Marilyn, take us out, Prez.
I'm with you guys. This has really been just such a tremendous experience. I think certainly for us also as panelists, just to be able to sort of walk through the practices that we've developed about how to encourage ourselves. I had let's see, what time is it? It's all right, it's 11:48. I'm gonna take 3 minutes to tell you a story about three little frogs.
Oh, yes, yes.
All right, so there were these three frogs. Everybody pull it in. There were these three frogs, right? And they were trapped in a well. It was deep down under the ground, and all they knew was that we got to get out of this well. And they could see far above them that there was bright sunshine, that there was opportunity, that there was new things that could happen, and their lives would be better, expanded, if they could just get out of this well. So frog number one tried it. Now, you know, a frog can jump, right? They can jump, they can leap. And so frog number one tried and tried to get up above the well. And there were voices up there saying, you can't do it. It's too deep for you. You're never going to make it. You're not going to be able to do this. And frog number one tried as much as they could, but they gave up. So frog number two, having watched frog number one, said, I think I've got a different strategy for this. I'm going to do my very, very best. And frog number two leaped and jumped, and there came those voices again. This is too far for you to jump. You're never going to make it. This is not for you. You're not going to be able to do this. The well is where you should be. And after a while and hearing all of that, frog number three gave up. So here comes frog number I'm sorry, frog number two gave up. Frog number three stepped up and thought to themselves, you know what? No matter what, I know I can do this. So frog number three jumped and leaped and jumped and leaped and was tired in doing so, really tired, but just kept jumping and leaping. And through that whole thing, there were those voices again saying, you can't do this. This isn't for you. You're not going to make it. The other two didn't make it. There's no reason you should make it. But miraculously, frog number three jumped up over that well and made it onto the other side. And so I always ask this question at this point, what do you think is the difference between frog number one, two, and three? Any answers? Y'all can put them in the chat.
Confidence.
So here it is. Frog number three was deaf.
Oh.
So here's the moral to that story. Frog number three never heard those voices that said, you can't do it. This is too hard for you. Your lot in life is down in that well. What I want to encourage you all about is to develop your own voice in your own mind about what you can do. There is no limit to what you can do when you put your mind to it. I have a really close friend that sometimes, I'll say, I have this idea of a thing I want to do. And she'll say to me, I think you're cooler than that. And so I have to say to myself, is this idea that I'm wanting to pursue, is this as cool as I can be? Is this as good as I can get? Is this as high as I can go? Is this as far as I can stretch myself? And I want you all to keep that, in your mind, in your heart. I know the question had been, what was the last question, Jeffrey? I think it was Nadine's question.
Nadine's question. It was about when you feel like you've sort of been knocked down, how do you?
Yes. Yes, yeah. You'll Nadine, and to all of you all, you're only going to make a mistake one time. Any mistake you make, you're only going to make that one time. I think this is what makes interior design so unique. You'll remember the steps that got you there, and it'll be clear to you like what I should do to not have that happen again. Um, uh, Another time, I'll tell you stories about when I've made a mistake, but I still walked out of the situation confident that that was a mistake. It wasn't the whole story. It wasn't everything that there was to know. I want to thank everybody for attending. This is Saturday morning. You only have 52 Saturdays in a year, and you thought it not robbery to spend this one with us and with ASID. And for that, I thank you.
Yes, thank you all. And I want to give a very special thank you to the Student and Emerging Professionals Committee that has worked so hard on this since the fall to put all this together, starting with the chair, Mariam Abdelhamid, and then the committee members, Nadine El-Telkawi and Demiana Sadek, and our student rep to the board, Suha Jawad, who really I must give a special shout out to Suha for taking that position of student rep to the board to another level than we've really ever seen before. in terms of outreach and social media and working with the committee and the whole board to make this a really special week. So big shout out to you, Suha, and thanks to that whole committee for just giving it all. Y'all have done an amazing job. All right, I guess that is.